Alright, so here we are. How's it going?
Good. It's going great.
Good. So we got all kinds of things we can talk about. And I guess something that a lot of people are curious about out there is the male and female dynamic.
Yes. Are we able to explain that? I think so. Do we fully know it yet? Do we fully understand it yet? I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know either.
But we'll try. We'll do what we know.
Right. We'll
get
do,
there.
We'll do what we know.
There's people who've been married for 20 or 40 years who still don't know exactly.
What's going on?
But
and
we
why.
can try to understand as best as we can. That's all we can do.
Well, there's a lot of people out in the world that have trouble even getting to any point of understanding whatsoever. They just seem to be at war with each other, torturing each other in one way or another.
Well, I think it's easy. I think once you do get in a relationship, you slip into a different mindset of a man-woman relationship, and you both fulfill those roles. And it's easy to just fall into that and not understand the other side. Like, how do I put it? Like you slip into something because your goals sort of start to change and you biologically change, I don't know, as if there's going to be children soon, and you kind of sort of react to each other differently than you would if you were just friends, I guess. When you enter a committed relationship with someone.
So it's because there's a lot riding on it. Everything, even.
Yeah.
Everything riding on it.
I would say so.
Yeah.
And people can only understand so much. I think a lot of it has to do with how people are raised and what kind of male-female relationship they see growing up. Dictates how they see their own other male-female relationships in the future and as they go forward. Because it's really in depth what you do as a kid. If you don't have a good example, you really don't know the little things it takes. And you have to sort of teach yourself. And I think that's what a lot of people in our generations are doing, is teaching ourselves the little things it takes that we possibly didn't see our parents do, or that we did. There's different degrees of it, I think. I think some people had better examples than others, for sure. And some people disagree with other people's definition of good examples. So I think it's the individual, and I don't think there's going to be a perfect relationship prototype, maybe in a general sense, but people react differently. People are like chemicals, and they are individual chemicals. We're all unique, and we interact with other chemicals and make reactions, whether that reaction be good or bad. What do you think about that?
Well, what my brain churns out after listening, what just pops into my head is, how do individuals find each other? And, you know, let's assume a lot of people don't want to be an individual. They just don't. Like, they don't want to have... Okay, I got a lot of stuff. Let me try to unpack it. So, we're talking about families. You're talking about the breakdown of relationships. What happens? What I think happens is, number one, priorities shift and change, and people argue about the priorities. Number two, the wife is confused on who the boss is. Is it the husband or is it the guy at the company that writes the paychecks? And where's the food coming from? Where's the security? And then so there's all of these things, a confusion, a fracturing already at that point. And then the schools entering in to watch the children while the parents produce. Before, the mother stayed at home, but still the kid went off to school and the mother was at home.
Well, it depends how far you go back.
That's true. That's what I'm saying, is like it's changed so much with each generation. It's it's very hard to like understand what's going on with this.
Even
because
today,
it changes
there's
so
people
fast.
that choose not to do that. When I was growing up, my mom was a stay-at-home mom, but she gave us the choice of whether we wanted to be homeschooled. I always chose no. Looking back, I wish I might have done that, but my brother and sister were homeschooled intermittently, somewhat.
Yeah, so do you think it's good everybody's so mixed up? Do you think it gives a higher chance of individuality?
Yes, because I think I wasn't bad in school, nothing bad. Now, I did have to unlearn a lot of stuff, but I think it was good for me to be exposed to that. My brother being homeschooled, he really individuated, I think. He's very unique in his own way. But he said what really stopped him was he wasn't around people. He was antisocial, and I still see that with him today. He has problems wanting to hang out with people, but we always have a good time with him, and he always ends up having a good time. But he likes to be alone. He's a Leo lion who likes to be alone.
Right.
My sister did it when she was in grade school. I think maybe she was being bullied or something, but she kind of stepped away. But then she went back to school and graduated top of her class too. So it was, I would think it was cool we all had the choice. We weren't forced. Mom never said, you're doing this. She approached me about it when I was in like 7th or 8th grade and asked me about it. And that was at the time when I was like, nah, that's kind of loserish or something. I don't know what I thought. I liked my friends a lot. I had good friends though. I had a good circle. Some people don't. That's really why I liked going to school, was the really close-knit group of friends that I had. But looking back, I don't think it would have been terrible for me to have been homeschooled. Maybe I would have branched out and done something else. I think different personalities react differently to things.
Yeah. People react in all kinds of different dimensional ways with that. Yeah, there needs to be some kind of socializing of human beings, you know. And
well, I think it's a responsibility of the parent to see what is best for the kid. Now, if a mother is willing to stay home and a father too is willing to stay home if it's possible, and homeschool and give each kid things they need and do really cool projects with them, I definitely think it's good. But for parents who aren't willing to do that, I think it's best to go out.
How do we have villages again when we don't have to do it? But you know, where our DNA and our social psychology is based upon.
Well, what I see happening is people starting to have bigger families and creating their own villages again.
Yeah.
And then we'll branch out with other people. But I think there's another step. There's no reason for like us to connect a lot with people down the road here.
Yeah.
There's really no ultimate benefit, because you think about kids, some of them don't have kids, or so many different ages where it's not as relatable. But back in the day, these workers that lived here were all the same ages, probably all had families, and all the kids could play. It's just a different dynamic. And because kids would play together, parents would hang out.
Yeah, everybody's doing their own individual thing.
Yeah, and parents made sure they held each other accountable. Their kids, each other, because there was kids involved, and they wanted the best possible situations for everyone. Children do motivate a lot of things in people when they have them, I think.
For you know, remember when I said earlier today, freedom is chaos.
Mhm. If you want it to be.
Well, I mean, when you look out at the whole town, whole city, whole state, and everybody doing their own thing. There's not like a season to things, like you were saying.
Well, I think what happens is an individual will choose freedom, and usually they'll choose order within themselves. And when you have stable households, it creates order. Even if they are a little chaotic or creative or something, there's still some kind of order. But the problem is we don't have order in each household. But I don't think we have freedom, really, as much as we could have. Withheld a lot from a lot of things.
Yeah, I hear people throw the word around a lot, the freedom word, and it's never talked about as an absolute. Like, what is it talked about in what regard? If it is freedom, then everything that's been happening for the past, decade or 2 decades has been, crazy. It's been not anything about freedom.
Mm-hmm.
It's been about uniformity, solidarity.
Well, that's a forced authoritarian conformity, and people do not do that way. They have to conform in their own household on an individual level with their own genetics and someone they choose to share those genetics with. And when that order happens, that's when it happens out in the world. It's not going to happen from like an authoritarian point of view, because that doesn't let people have freedom to be individuals.
Do you think that's the leap of faith to let people be people?
Yes. I do think that. I think you have to do that. I don't think there's any other way.
Yeah, because we've had a bunch of crazy stuff happen to us, and you go through the legal system and all this, and they don't really try that hard to catch the bad people.
Well, that's because they don't know. It doesn't mean that much to them. You can't expect a government official or someone to carry all the emotion and thoughts of what you're feeling in your individual case. It's impossible.
Yeah.
You can have a judge or something that tries to see it from a legal standpoint and tries to keep out of the emotions and just based on what they hear. But I don't know that it's a fully possible. I mean, it's a good thought. I think it's the best thing that we've came up with on a large scale. It's the best ideas we've had. And to question a whole system is hard because we don't know all the little steps and decades of efforts from our ancestors to get us here. They've tried a lot, and a lot of people have failed, a lot of people have died to get us to this point. And that does mean something. You can walk into a supermarket right now, and lots of people made that happen, from the walls to the wiring to the food that's in there, to the delivery truck drivers, to the people that check you out, to the tiles in the floor, to the refrigerator systems that keep it going. And it's a lot of effort and a lot of meaning that went into that. And we really take it for granted, I think. A lot of people put in effort for those things. Even efforts at, like, you go to school, I mean, you can sit in a chair, the heating and air conditioning work, people had cars to get there, there's chairs, there's flooring, there's carpets or tiles, and it's not falling apart and it's working. That means each person that contributed to that dedicated a part of themselves, and it meant that much to them to do that right. To do it right is a big thing.
Yeah, so everything wouldn't come apart.
Yeah, there's a lot of meaning in everything. And I think we take it for granted what all it takes to have what we have. And we think it's easy and everything, but really it's a lot of little things that people probably worked really hard at to do right. Somebody's dedicated their whole life to a skill, so you can have that little thing that ties into the bigger picture. And that's what I mean with freedom and individuals. Individual things, when given the freedom to do things right, will rise to the top and create something together but not really working together per se, directly, but working together. And then the carpet comes in, and then the chairs are there, and the heating and cooling is there. And it's one big thing that's working effectively. But those people didn't necessarily, per se, work in an office together. You know what I mean? They all contributed something from their own individual lives.
Why do you think people feel like ashamed to do those things?
To do what?
Like have that little skill to do that thing perfectly though. Have pride in their work.
Because it's taken for granted, and people don't understand what all it takes for things to work in this world, and they will shame people who do those kind of tasks because they see it as meaningless, because they're not connecting that small task with the bigger picture and what it made. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
They're seeing the bigger picture and thinking, oh, that's just how it is. It's no big deal. But really, there's a lot of little components with a lot of meaning. Everything had to mean something to somebody. I mean, they dedicated their lives to doing these things, at least a fraction of their time.
Yeah, I get the sense that a lot of people feel ashamed to develop a skill and just do one thing and be good at one thing.
Well, it's hard to do. It's hard to figure out what you want to be, because it is a really big deciding thing. It sort of seems with the way the system's set up, especially for young people. You say you want to go to college per se, but that's a big commitment at a young age, with a loan perhaps that you really have to spend several decades of your life paying that off, and spend because you've dedicated so much resource to that one thing. That's why people say they get trapped in it. You can't really change it for a lot of people, or it'll feel meaningless, and then you're working towards something meaningless because it doesn't mean what you thought it would mean when you were 18. And then some people pick trades, and there seems to be more freedom with that, to get in and out if you choose.
Yeah.
Although it's harder on the body.
Yeah.
That's the sacrifice. You have to pick your poison, I guess.
Yeah.
Do you want to sacrifice your body, or do you want to sacrifice your mind and your health? Both sacrifice health. Sitting around at a desk all day is not healthy. And then the blue-collar worker or whatever that really does hard manual labor, they're healthy for now, but as they get older, they really start to deteriorate faster. So I don't know. It's personal preference. It's a tough choice. It's hard for people to pick.
Yeah, it sure is.
And we don't have people like our parents to really teach us a trade. It's kind of impossible. You can't take your kid to work with you all the time to teach them what you know. Sort of a disconnect from that. So the kid is told you can do whatever you want. But really it should be, you should find out what you're good at and do that. You know, you can be whatever you want, but kids need a little more direction, I think. That might be fun to say when they're in kindergarten maybe, but by the time they're in middle school or like 10, 12, 14, you should really be talking with them and helping them discover their strengths and what they would really enjoy.
We need to be changing what we say to them. We use infant language until they're, teenagers.
And they're like, you can be anything you want, and then you start to think it's time to graduate and you're going to college and you're like, what do I want to be? And they always tell you, oh, you have plenty of time. You have plenty of time. And it's like, well, not really. If I have to pick something and take out
not really, yeah,
tens of thousands of dollars in loans, that's a really big deal. So it's not really as much time as they say. Parents really need to take the time to figure out their kids' strengths, or take them to career counselor. I had a friend who did that and it helped her. Go to a career counselor who will sit down with you and be like, what do you like to do? And they'll figure out what's good for you and be like, does this sound fun? And the person's usually like, yeah, that actually does sound fun. I didn't know that was a thing. But parents need to do that, and if they're not willing to do it, they need to invest something in someone that will know how to do it. But you can't put it all on the kid when they're just out of high school. It's really overwhelming. And maybe some kids can handle that, but I don't know. I think parents should invest a little more time in their children, but it comes back to both parents are gone or doing their own thing, and they don't have the time and resources to help you like that. Their money and tax dollars go to the schools that are supposed to do that with guidance counselors and stuff, but there's so many people and so many students, it's just impossible to do that for every kid.
Yeah, the parents got to be there. Do you think that's why the liberal people are pushing for, Planned Parenthood abortions and stuff? They want to control and plan people. And I'm just playing devil's advocate here.
Well, I think it's a little more. I think it's a little more chaotic than that. I don't know that it's that. Mainly, it could be that partly, but I think it's more of they don't believe in a future on a basic level where they don't even think about that stuff, and that's seen as a hindrance or a very big burden. But it is a big burden to have a child any time of any era. To have kids back in the day, I mean, you're gonna lessen your food to give to that kid.
Yeah,
it's hard work to take care of a family. And it's funny because now it's probably the easiest it has ever been to take care of a kid.
Yeah.
With all this government support and everything, it is probably literally the easiest time. Maybe not financially, but still you think about it, it's easier than they had it back in the day still. They didn't have money. They had to grow farms just to be able to feed their 10 kids. We have it way easier now, but we still think we have it hard, and we do in some cases, but people also think they need the most extreme, best things. But really, I think you have to dedicate your free time and really what you know right now and invest that in your future.
Dude, what do you think can unite all of these different individual families that are so different that, because people's knee-jerk reaction is nihilism?
Well, I think maybe social media at this point is what unites these people. I see homeschool groups and everything on Facebook for West Virginia, they all talk together. People out in California have their own homeschool groups. People in Kansas, they don't live right together per se, but they do meet up and stuff that way.
Right.
But yeah, social media for sure, I think.
But
you think about it, even back 20 years ago, homeschooling still wasn't.
I mean, that's how they do, but what I mean is what sort of doctrine or spirit could unite this country at least? Or do you think that has ever happened, really?
I think the only way we're going to unite is not by believing in the same things or by agreeing on the same things. We need to go to the individual and say, you make this choice for you. You cannot force other people to make these same ideas as you.
Why do you think there's a constant push to make one monoculture across all of America?
Because it's predictable. When you have people the same, it's predictable and secure. Jordan Peterson talks about that with the flag and what it means. It's a symbol of, if we all believe in this thing, my neighbor over here is predictable. That doesn't have to be bad. It just means you're on the same page with things. You're going the same way. You have your eyes on the same thing.
Yeah.
We don't have our eyes on the same thing, and so our neighbors are unpredictable. We don't trust anyone. a lot of people choose not to have kids nowadays, and it's a real big problem. They see children as an issue. But really, I think back in the day, that's really what brought people and communities together was children.
What do you think people's goal is now?
I think people like to come home, not worry about anyone else, and do what they enjoy doing. I don't really know exactly what people's goals are. A lot of them don't make sense. A lot of their goals don't make sense to me. Sometimes mine might not make sense to me either. We're living in a strange world with not a lot of direction. Ready?
And we're back from our break.
Okay. Here's what I'm going to say. How your children treat you when they are no longer obligated to listen to you is a direct reflection of your parenting skills and the impact you had on them as a human.
I think that's true.
I do too, and I think that's why a lot of people consider themselves dog moms and that of the sort, and they never want kids, they want animals only. Because animals never grow up. And our animals never, and I love animals, I'm not saying that, but I still think people should have kids if they choose, but I think it's a real problem in our society that there's so many dog moms, because a dog will never challenge you. They'll always think you're the most perfect human being. I think it's important to have someone who has you in them to challenge you a little bit. Yeah.
I do too. You have some dog constantly rolling over and fetching and wagging its tail when you get food ready for dinner.
They're always appreciative of you no matter what.
No matter, unconditional love.
Yeah. And kids aren't going to unconditionally love you for a long time until they get old enough and start having kids of their own. They're going to realize what you went through. But you can't hold it over their heads. Kids are resilient and rebellious, and you have to fight with them a little bit with your words, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And you got to challenge them so they question things. It's good for them to question things, but there will be moments where they really just don't like you. And they're not going to be thankful for everything you do for them. But it will pay off if you're patient with them and you fight with them and you don't get resentful of them. I think that happens a lot. Parents get resentful of their kids for not thinking they're perfect, for not thinking their parents are the most perfect thing and always being appreciative. And then bad things start to happen. But that's natural for kids. You got to put them in their place, per se, or make them respect you. You have to challenge them. You don't feel sorry for yourself when your kids do that, I think. What do you think? I guess I said that right.
Yeah. I agree with what you said, and what I have to further to say is people aren't willing to go through that stage of being hated.
Yep, and that's the difference between a dog and a human, child or pet that you're taking care of.
And other things that popped into my head while you were talking was Abraham wrestling with God about Sodom and Gomorrah, about how many good people are there.
But God was willing to do that with him.
Yeah.
And Abraham came around. But kids will do that. I don't think it's good if kids don't sort of fight back with you on things and question. Because if not, they're really going to get fucked over in the real world.
Yeah.
They're going to go along with everything.
Yeah, they got to practice with you.
And they'll get abused.
Yeah, they'll get abused by people that are not their family, which is who they're going to be dealing with for most of their life.
And it's important of having siblings to bully each other. But you have to be the parent and the mediator to teach them why that's not right, and why you have to understand. You have to make the kids understand what's going on and how this will happen out in the real world. But here's how you get this to stop. Here's how you diffuse the situation. Here's when you know when to walk away. Those are trials with what's going to happen with your kid out in reality. And it's best to figure that out within the confines of your home and let that chaos happen there. And then deal with it and let everybody come to a solution and be like, okay, I understand that now. Then to send your kid out, not allowing them to ever argue with you, getting resentful, and then them leaving the house, and then they are confused by reality for real.
Yeah.
They'll get fucked.
That's a very good observation. Yeah, you're
Because, and that's what we see a lot. People think they're right. They don't think anybody should be arguing with them because their parents always made them feel, and that's what a lot of them do to cope with that. They let their child think they're right and run over them. They don't fight with their kid to avoid confrontation, or they dominate the kid so much that they only argue with the kid and don't let the kid have any opinions of their own. I think I've seen both things happen. But they get out in the real world and they get into arguments with people out that they aren't close to, they didn't grow up with, that's someone random, and they wreak havoc on society for sure in reality with other people.
Yeah, the other people, they expect to raise them. They don't. They don't have their shit together.
Yep.
So to speak, and they make their problems everybody else's problems because of this so-called incomplete parenting, or this resentment, this thing that they're missing.
You've got to fight with people, and you got to butt heads so you can move on and become something better. You don't want to be butting heads for the rest of eternity with your kids.
Right.
It needs to be done by the time they turn 18 and are ready to go out.
Right.
They need, before then too. But kids are going to rebel, and that's just a fact of life, and you got to know how to handle that. And you have to be able to do that in a way that's not abusive, but helps them in the long run. And they might not see it at that time, but they're going to remember that conversation that you had with them, or what you said later on when they are out in the real world. And they'll apply it to their real life, I think. But if they don't have that baseline, they're going to be really confused when they go out.
Definitely.
And parents who get resentful at their kids thinking for themselves, and is not agreeing with everything they're doing, and they just constantly try to belittle the child, or it's always an argument, it never gets resolved. Those kids, I think, get out and think everybody's against them or something. I don't know. Exactly. It's all different. That's just things that I've seen. But I was able to argue with my parents, and I'm sure I've said things that I regret saying, like I hate you or something, you know?
Right.
In the moment that I didn't really mean, and I realized that later.
Me too.
But
regret it.
My parents understood, and I would apologize, and they're like, yeah, I know you didn't mean that. That was important for them to say that. And then next time that happened, it made me have a filter where I was like, maybe I don't want to say that this time. Because I remember how bad it made me feel, and they're understanding, so it's kind of unnecessary. But when the parent's not understanding that the kid said that, and they get so upset, like, oh my God, my kid hates me, and they get resentful, or I don't know what happens, the kid is going to keep saying that. Because they are still not going to understand why you're not making them understand or something. I don't know.
Wow. Yeah. You're right. Yeah, these insights aren't apparent to most people though. So, you know, should there be like that? People say that there's an elite. Mm-hmm. You know, that there's the top of the top, and then there's the peasants, the everybody, you know, like us. We're all just the peasant class working for them. Do you think that's like a destined thing? Like some people just really care so much.
No,
like they apply what you're saying to the nth degree and keep gold bars hidden and invested for their future family.
Well, yeah, that's good for them. I think they should be.
You know what I mean? They build a legacy.
They did think ahead and they did something for their future. But like peasant class.
Is that because they don't think ahead or they're getting fucked over?
No, I think it's a matter of point of view. A lot of the elite, and I think it naturally happens, but a lot of the elite say they work for me and all this. But really, you talk to an everyday person, that's not what they're doing. Yeah. That's not their goal in life.
Because
even if that is happening, they are helping out the rich guy. That's not what their goal is, and I know the elite possibly think that's their whole goal. These little idiots working for me.
I'm just thinking everything you're saying about how to raise a family. That's great. Why don't people do that? And then some people do, and they're successful.
It's hard.
And then they get bitter about it.
It's hard to have a part of yourself, which is what a child is, look at you and be like, "There's something wrong with you."
Right.
I think it's hard for people to accept.
Well, okay. Well, let me illustrate this further. So you had this good family that has these good values, and they go out in the world of all these other fucked up people that don't have that, and they shit all over you, and the must be nices come and hit your face.
That's when you.
How do you deal?
Well, you should be prepared to deal with that too. If your parents and your siblings argued with you, you'll know how to argue with them. And how to win an argument with them. Mm-hmm. And it's not even about winning, it's about your peace of mind is what it is, I think.
Yeah.
What's going to maintain your peace of mind and perhaps spread peace and keep that other person from escalating and infecting you with their negativity. It's just being like, it was nice. I'm very grateful for my parents that did that. I'm sorry your parents didn't do that, and I understand that's something that you have to deal with. But perhaps when you have children of your own, you don't have to treat them that way.
Yeah.
That's how my parents were. Just be like, that's what my parents did. Their parents didn't do that for them. That's why they wanted to do it for me.
So we have to kind of parent these people away out of our life.
If you want.
Hopefully they get...
Or you walk away.
Yeah, you just don't talk to them.
But I wouldn't engage in an argument and be like, no, that's not this, because they're not your sibling. You do that with your siblings, so you don't have to do that out there. You know how to logically do it. It's sort of not as emotional of an argument. It's a factual argument that you have with mature adults. It's how it's supposed to be out in the real world after you had your immature, emotional reactions and arguments with your family in your household as you were growing up and going through all kinds of different stages.
How much should we be our brother's keeper? Is there limits on that, you think?
No, I think it's different for everyone. People have the freedom to pick what they want. I know my limits. They don't go very far with other people.
Yeah.
But I'm very introverted, though. I let few people get close to me, but I also have a very high detector and a very high disgust response to people who like to be victims, even on a slight degree, and I don't like them around me. Now, to a certain degree, I understand people go through things, and that's the point of having a friend, but if you're constantly going through something all the time, and it's always this, it's always that, it's not an equal relationship.
Right.
And I think they should be cut out. Or I had to cut those people out. I'm not going to say what other people should do. That's just what I do. I cut those people out because there's nothing, I'm not going to be able to help, I'm not going to be able to give them what they want anyway. Because that's not my personality. I'm going to be so disgusted by them, there's going to be no caring there to help them anyway. And that's what they're saying with those things. They want you to argue with them like a parent would. And I wasn't missing that growing up. So I don't have that to give them, that missing part that I also, like, say someone doesn't have a father and they're always complaining about that. I did, and I had a mother, so I can't relate. I'm not going to be able to argue with them and help them with that because I had that link and was able to argue with that figure that they didn't have. But say I had a missing father, you had a missing mother, and we can fight over that and probably have maybe an effective relationship that would help maybe each other. Because we're able to fight. I'm not going to say it's to be a healthy one, but it's what people would need.
Yeah.
But me personally, I don't have that to give per se in the same sense. I might have an abandonment issue, but it was never I can't argue with you. I was always able to argue with both of my parents, and they would always argue back, and I would be taught to understand these things, and it was never gotten too far. I would be put in my place and be like, okay, that makes sense. I can see why they did that. I'd be mad at the time. But me going out in the world and perhaps finding someone who has this missing part and they're trying to do this, I'm not going to be able to really help them with that because I don't relate. My mind didn't build itself that way through childhood. And I was able to argue with that outlet and understand and move past that. And some people don't have that, and they don't have a hard time moving past. And they look for that in other people. But I think those are baseline relationships that aren't going to progress. And if they do, there's going to be an unhealthy dependence. Like you're my father or you're my mother. You know? So I think it's important we all deal with our issues. And if we didn't get that in our childhood, it's our responsibility as adults to figure that out before we put that burden on other people. Or to deal with it and your other person that you pick or your friend can help you, but it shouldn't be what the whole relationship is based off of. You know what I mean? It shouldn't be looming underneath the surface all the time. It should. And a lot of people that I've met are good at that. They're not going to make it your problem all the time. But they'll talk about it with you when it's necessary, and you can kind of help them. But someone that's whole life wasn't based around this missing link is not going to be able to help you with that missing link the way that you need. But I also don't think it works maybe for people, and people can do what they want. But what I'm saying is it's just not a healthy relationship. You need to individually deal with that somehow. I have to light back my honey berry cigar. Tasty. Even though I can't taste.
They are tasty.
But yeah. That's why I think a nuclear family is so important, because it has all these different figures. Male and female, mother and father, male and female siblings, peers or something, that you're able. It's helpful because a kid can relate to people genetically that probably has similar brain makeups to theirs, and they can argue with that, and it's a stepping stone of someone's going to understand you because you're part of them, and they're going to be able to know how to put you in your place with that and argue with you so you understand. So when you go out in the real world with people who you're not genetically similar to, that's minds are not the same as yours, you're going to be able to deal with them respectfully and mature.
Right.
Does that make sense?
Yes.
And I think that's the missing key of what's happening, especially with divorced parents, missing mothers, missing fathers. You can even have missing mothers and fathers when they're in the home. They're absent. That's what affects people, and that's what affects their whole lives moving forward if they don't deal with that. They'll make it a burden on everybody else. Oh, my life's so terrible. I had it so bad. And it's like, okay, I'm supposed to dedicate my whole life to this negativity. Why can't you transcend that and come with me and do something better?
What do you think stops those people?
Stops who?
Those people that from going off and doing their own thing, and they just want to bitch and complain about you succeeding.
I think it's really hard, and I think it's really hard when you grow up in that mindset and you have that missing link. I don't know. A lot of people might suggest therapy and talking to someone with it about it. Maybe that is what you should do. Maybe you should talk to a family member or whoever you can find, it be a friend or whatever. But you have to respectfully talk to that person, and you can't bring them down. That's a bad way. I don't think anyone's going to be able to help you if you're that resentful. It's going to be impossible because they're not looking for help. That's why you have to help yourself. Nobody's going to be able to help you if you're not looking for help. You're unconsciously seeking out that figure that you have missing in other people. And finding similarities with that person and wanting that person to be better than that other person, and you're holding them to that standard instead of the standard of let's transcend this and make something and create something on our own. Does that make sense?
Yeah. So that brings me back to how the individuals collaborate together And because it seems that like you were talking about that school shooting that happened, and that guy was like, "Oh, it's the sheriff. Open up, bro. I'll show you my badge." And one kid was like, "Nah, I don't believe you," and all the other kids were like, "Oh, it's safe. Let's go out."
What got the other kids was when he said bro, but what happened, he's like, "It's the sheriff's department." It said it sounded convincing, and one person's like, "Yeah, that sounds like maybe we could be manipulated, and maybe we don't want to take that choice. Why would a sheriff ask us to come out like that?" You know?
Yeah.
And then they waited, and then he's like, the person started to get a little upset that they weren't doing what he said, and then he said, "I'll show you my badge, bro." And then the other kids were like, "Oh God," he said, "bro." Like, this is obviously a high schooler or whoever, whatever it was. Someone our age. This is not the sheriff's department. But yeah, one person stood up, was like, "Yeah," which the sheriff's department thing he said was sort of convincing if you listen to it. But when they said bro, everybody's like, it just was an immature thing to say. A stupid thing to say if you're trying to trick some people, which is the advantage over them. They always say something to get themselves away.
Yeah.
Because if they did open the door, even after he said bro, he'd be like, "Look how retarded they are. I said bro and they still came out." It's very complicated how evil works. But not that complicated if you know what to look for.
Right. Yeah, people want to overcomplicate it, but really they're not. They just have a resentment. They're just angry. They want to hurt people to feel power, to feel happiness that they're not
because
weak.
They're missing something.
Yeah.
Someone's made them feel powerless. And you have to empower your kids, and that's what it is, to let your kids speak their opinion and try to understand it. And tell them, "Yeah, that's actually got a good point," or "That's retarded, Steve, you idiot." You think if you say that out in the real world, people are going to take you seriously?
Right.
And then that's important. But you got to understand your kid and challenge them. You can't tell them everything they say is stupid. That's not going to help. But if it is stupid, be honest with them about it. If it's good, be honest with them about it. So I would say that kid had something missing or go wrong in his family that he's trying to...
Is there anything that can be done to mitigate against those kids? Do you think it would help if if there was like a gun the teacher had in case somebody goes nuts to defend themselves? You think that's a way?
It puts you in a bad situation because you got one crazy person who's willing to go to any lengths, and you got these kids, 20, 30 kids in one room with a small entrance. And they can come in and take out a lot of people in a concentrated space. So that's why they close the doors. Because you get one person that are angry enough to start shooting chaotically, you're going to take out a lot of people. It's hard to take out one person, I would say, and it wouldn't seem that way. But how hard is it when adrenaline's pumping? All these 20 kids, 2 or 3 shots can take out several of them.
Yeah.
And you're trying to shoot this one guy who's all over the place. It's not an army. It's one guy. It's probably hard. And you don't know when they're going to come at the door, and when they come, they could just start shooting, and it's hard to get them. But I don't know. I don't know all the details. It might help if they were trained. Teachers were trained. I had a teacher who would keep a gun at his desk all the time and told us that he did. He said, "Don't tell anyone." But I have
usually there's a teacher and a helper, until a certain grade. And if you had 2 people with a gun, I mean, somebody's getting the bad guy.
I think if someone is in a classroom... now, if you don't have the chance to close the doors and shit and get away from the door, bulletproof door or something.
How about, maybe not the teachers having a gun. What about, every school have a security guard like a bank?
That's what I agree with. At certain points in the school that are taking it seriously. But the whole point is there's something wrong in our society. This used to not be a problem. People could take the rifles to school in their back seat and be like, "I'm going hunting later." No big deal. It was the intent. People didn't have things missing like they do now. We don't have... I think it all comes back to nuclear family, broken families, missing elements that are essential to a child's development.
How do we have nuclear families again when everybody wants to be gay? And
well, you just got to start doing it. You can't get so depressed that you're like, "Oh, everybody's gay. There's no point. Who's my kids going to hang out with?" If enough people are like, "Yeah, screw that. I'm going to do this anyway," then every individual is going to be doing that.
Right, making people.
And in this area, we're fortunate to be in an area where that's not as popular to rebel against a family.
Right.
So you can move places like that with people you agree with. And I say, if you don't want kids and stuff, go live in your own area, which is kind of actually what happens. You don't belong here, really.
Right.
And you're never going to feel like you belong, so go belong somewhere. And they'll probably end up destroying themselves. And that's what they want to do, though, I think.
Yeah.
So, I think that's just how we handle it. Just let them do their own thing. I don't think there's any kind of mediation to help these people at that scale. That was a parent responsibility. That was a family responsibility. We can't all be accountable. We need to start putting our energy towards kids or towards people who want something better. We focus on people who bring negativity and who cause the problems. What would happen if we put all our energy into the future of people who really want to do things and make them happen?
Right.
And stop feeling sorry for people. Like, take kids at school who try real hard, but the kids who don't do well, who always cause problems, are always the ones that get the most attention. Do something for kids that do well. Reward them. That's slowly going away. It's just, I don't know. We have drug rehab centers all over the place, but we don't have one thing, a community center good enough to teach kids some cool things they might like or to get together.
Right.
We got the arcade, which is good, but I mean something bigger too. More things like that. We can't just have one thing on Main Street that has that. I mean, that's not investing. And it's because tax dollars are investing these drug rehab centers. We got those on every corner.
Yeah, why don't
Doesn't seem to be
tax
doing any
dollars
good.
pay for community stuff like our pool?
It used to do that, I
And
think,
playgrounds.
because that was what was important to people.
Where kids can play outside together.
Yeah, we let our playgrounds run into the dumps.
Yeah, there's no place to go to the bathroom or have a picnic. The picnic tables are falling apart.
There's not an incentive. They don't.
And now there's no drinkable water. The water has
Thanks to
has
one
poop in
person
it.
many years ago who decided they were going to start embezzling the money that was supposed to be to fix it.
Yeah. So how do you stop people from doing that too? What do we just accept everything? Or
Well, I'll say this
how do you
about
go
the
in
government.
a better direction?
I was sitting in there today and we were talking about people who don't get. Me and a lady I work with.
How do we punish these bad people?
We were talking about it, and the way she put it is, long years ago, there was something going on with an older person who was getting these people raises and doing this, and then one of my coworkers confronted their boss about it and said, "Look, this isn't right. What can we do?" And then the boss was like, "I've looked into it, and it seems like we're going to uncover a whole lot of stuff we're not going to want to uncover with people who we wouldn't think are involved with this, that are involved with this, and it's just not going to be good." And my point of view is that's protecting them. Yeah, it's going to be uncomfortable, and yeah, you might ruin some lives perhaps, but I mean, didn't they ruin their own life by making those choices, thinking there'd be no consequences and not caring who they hurt, even though it was morally wrong?
Why do you think there's a transference of guilt upon...
I don't know. I don't have that. And I'm just like, yeah.
To cover it up.
I don't care if you're 70 years old. I mean, if you spent 30 years screwing people over and manipulating and being immoral, then you need to be called out on that, especially under the tax dollar. Our money.
Why would people feel bad about calling out the scandal and it getting exposed? I think they want to stop the news from...
Because they're part of it.
Make it...
Is why.
So
Some part of them... some part of them, whether they're conscious or unconscious of it, resonates with them.
Well, it seems real difficult to justify listening to any of it. I guess people aren't.
There's some simple things, and you protect people and let it go. Something bad keeps happening. Oh, it's not my fault. They're doing it to themselves, and it's like, well, there's a personal responsibility in government where if the people are paying you with their tax dollars to do something, they're paying you to check this person with the tax dollars, you need to be responsible for that. Call them out. It's public information. If you're going to be doing this stuff on the taxpayer's dime, manipulating people, embezzling money, you need to really be thrown in jail. And you need to be, at least at the bare minimum, be called out about it. Something needs to be done. I don't agree with us letting them do whatever. People carry shame. And they resonate with people who do bad things. If they're not willing to call it out, I'm going to assume that you're resonating with this person a little too much. And perhaps you should be on my radar too. Oh, that's a big can of worms we don't want to open up. I don't think we're going to like who gets called out. And it's like, then if this person gets called out and I like them, then maybe they weren't really who I thought they were the whole time. They just sure as heck didn't care what I thought of them. They sure as heck didn't care that they were not really being moral and lying to people. Why should I care about them? They didn't care about themselves. Especially if they're screwing people over. But it is what it is, I guess. I'm not going to sit by and do nothing. I don't mind embarrassing someone with a little snide comment. Because I really don't have anything that much to lose. And I sure as heck don't resonate and feel sorry with them. Sorry for them. So, yeah, you're on the taxpayer dime. You get a DUI. You kill someone, you don't kill someone, I don't care. You could have. It seems like you got in the car with the intent to kill someone. And then they say, I'm drunk, I didn't know, I was unconscious, is their excuse. I got unconscious when you're drunk, because that's what happens. And they use that as an excuse. And people will be like, oh yeah, they were drunk. And that's like, nah, they decided to get drunk knowing they act like that. Because that's what really was under there. So like, something needs to be said to these people. I don't like drunk drivers, and I don't like people who do that stuff and blame it on an unconscious drunkenness state.
Yeah, when you decide to go into that unconscious state beforehand.
Yeah.
Correct.
So, you know, and I've never gotten drunk and be like, oh man, I want to go drive a car around.
Well, that's what I say about people in this sexual harassment or rape accusations that are probably too many. People are drunk when they have sex, and then when they change their mind or whatever, the dude.
Really, you shouldn't be getting drunk around people like that. I don't think it's good to be getting drunk with people you don't really know.
Well, people have been for thousands of years.
I wouldn't say it was with people they didn't know.
Well, that's true. We were all in the same village or tribe, I guess.
If you're going out to a bar, number one in this day and time, that is going to automatically attract some bad people. Right. And I'm not saying people who go to bars are bad, but I'm saying it will attract those types of people. And if you're willing to put yourself in such an extreme, vulnerable state and get yourself so drunk without someone there to help you in case you do and to take you home, you're going out with people you don't know, you have no one there to help you, to watch you, to make sure you get home okay, people you don't trust, then you probably shouldn't be doing it. That's what I think. You have to have personal responsibility to a certain extent, and I'm not saying that people who rape people are like good by any means, and I think something bad does need to happen to them. But I'm saying to prevent yourself from getting in these situations and preventing yourself from getting in.
Don't rely on the police to come save you. I mean, that was the whole idea of us having a right to bear arms, is in case all these women can carry a Derringer or something, but
Which, I'm sure women get mad if they hear me say this, but I don't think women should be around, be getting drunk like that. Around.
Well, I don't think men should be getting drunk like that either.
I don't either, but it is a little different.
I think it's, they just get mad and fight each other.
Which that's bad. I think it's bad. I'm not big on drinking anyway.
No fun either.
I'm just saying. I would rather, women are more vulnerable just because of their physicality.
Yeah.
And I don't think they should be doing it just for that reason, because I don't trust other people.
Right.
Do I think that is how it should be? No. I wish people could go out and do that stuff and not have a rapist there. But that does happen, and the thing you can do is to prevent it, is to stay away from them just in case. And that's a sacrifice. Or get drunk with people you trust.
Okay, then here this leads into another thing of community. How do we form community? We're all sick. Clearly, we're sick. We need to have community. We need to restart the ideas of family. The hippies tried to do that with their counterculture thing, and they rebelled against the nuclear family. They're the nuclear family kids, and they rebelled against it for orgies and stuff. So,
Well,
how do we? I mean, we weren't even raised. You know what I'm saying is we're nostalgic for a time and a way of being raised where the people that were raised in that rebelled and hated it.
well,
They didn't
I would
want
say
it.
some of them did.
Why do you think that happened? How we prevent that from happening?
I don't know the percentages of people that went off and did that, but there's a large percentage who did not do that. But I do think the percentage who rebelled got the most attention. And so it seems
Okay.
like it was more people than it really was. I would say there was a problem going on.
Well, I don't know. Woodstock was the biggest concert.
Well, I wouldn't say
ever.
everybody that went there was like a drug addict or something.
Well, no, but they went there to open their mind, to be exposed to new music that has never been heard before. You know,
Well,
this
yeah.
electric sound. Like, what's that?
Well, that's different, I think.
So since the boomers rebelled against the nuclear family, what do we do to prevent it? Say we have a nuclear family. But what if it's too strict or they don't like and they rebel? Is it just destiny to have this cycle of order and chaos, constantly grappling with each other through time with the parents and the children? Is there a way that we could have?
Yeah,
seems like we've had-
I'd say there's times when it's worse, sometimes it's better, but each time is important. When it's going good, you got to do stuff to preserve that. If it's going bad, you have to do stuff to get past it. I don't know. We're not going to be around long enough to see the cycles and what's going to happen next. We don't know that it's going to be bad.
Do you think it matters to plan? Do you think all these people conjecturing, oh, the AI is coming, what about space and Mars, like that? You think all that's kind of like, what's the point? Is that?
No, I don't
retarded,
see
or-
it that way. If someone wants to do it, I'd say go for it. I'm kind of curious about that too. I don't know what it could lead to, but I would like to give my kids the opportunity to at least know what it is.
Right.
I don't think it's pointless. If someone feels that strongly about something, I think they should have the freedom to go try and do that and make it happen. Good for them. Now, if they are like coming around with a gun in my head saying you have to do this and you got to do this for my plan, I'm not on it anymore. But that Neuralink, if it's a personal choice and somebody wants to get it, go for it, dude. I feel like that's not going to be good.
Yeah, what if it turns into this vaccine stuff? You got to get it. You got to get the Neuralink to have work.
The thing is, it never works like that. I'm finding in this society, people aren't really going to come around with guns to your head because there's way too many of us. I'm starting to realize that.
I don't mean that. Like,
well, I mean,
look at the cell phone. Like, you can't go have a regular job and not have a cell phone. They'll give you a company cell phone.
Depends what kind of job you pick.
Well, I know, but like that's become an accepted thing.
Well, yeah, but we made it accepted. We all decided that. We all have cell phones.
I know that. Brave New World's always been scarier to me because it's accepted. It wasn't forced. Everybody wanted to do the drugs.
Well, yeah, but what if it doesn't have to be like that?
What could be done?
People just make their own choice that they don't want to do that, and there's always people who decide they don't want to do that. I'm not going to take the vaccine. No one's going to force me to do it. People are under the illusion that they're forced to do it, I think. But because they're like, well, this job's not going to let me do it. I've known several people that filed exemptions and they worked.
Right.
I know several people that have quit jobs and went to find something else where they didn't have to do it. You're not forced to do it. It's going to be hard, perhaps. I wasn't forced to take it with the job that I have. I wouldn't take it. It's not worth any amount of money to me to take it. And I'd do something else, no matter how hard it would be to do that. But no one's really forced right now to do anything.
It's not a battle they're willing to fight.
Yeah, that's exactly like, oh, I was forced. I just had to do it. That you're admitting weakness, that you aren't willing to fight it. That something else was worth it more than that. And that's fine if that's what you want to do. If people want to take the vaccine, I say go for it. It's your life, not mine.
Right.
But you're not going to force me to do it. And I haven't been forced to do it. I'm not going to be forced to do it. I'll fight it if someone thinks they can force me to do it. But people aren't as forced as they think, I don't think. And I think that's the problem right now that's going on. People think they're forced to have cell phones and they always talk shit about them. People think they're forced to do this, to do that, to go pay this for gas. People think they're forced to do all this stuff. There's always ways around it. There's always a way around it. It might not be easy, but if you choose the expedient life, you're going to be doing things that people are telling you to do.
Do you think there will be a counterculture of people that don't want to live in this century that want to live in the 20th century?
I think it's already happened. The 70s have come back. I got my 70s, 80s haircut. That's something I always resonated with. Bell bottoms are back. Long hair with men and these giant mustaches, those 70s porno mustaches are back. People are doing that. They're going to a better time because we don't like what we're in, and we're going back to somewhere where our ancestors figured something out. We're like, maybe those people had something figured out, and we kind of went a little too far.
Yeah, don't throw the baby out with the bathwater.
A couple generations fucked up between here and there, but I'm going to go back to this person because I see where it went wrong.
Yeah.
And yeah, but I definitely think it's coming back. A lot of parts, even in the 1800s, Victorian stuff, people are way into that. There's something for everybody. And I think that's what's cool going on right now is we're not picking one decade. People are picking multiple decades. We have a lot of individuals. People look like they're in the 70s. People look like they're from the 20s, the 50s over here, the 60s over here.
Yeah, we're kind of instead of. Yeah, that's an interesting point you're making. Instead of wanting to make new, we're taking stock of what we've done the past 100 years instead and cherry picking some very good things that we produced. I think what's
happening is we're like, here we were in the 70s. We had something figured out, and by the time the 80s figured out too, 90s perhaps, and by the 2000s rolling around, we're like, something went wrong. And so people are picking different times to go back to where they think they can progress forward in 10 years and it won't be like we decided back then to do.
Your last best save.
And we'll make a different 2010. But it's not going to be 2010, but we're going to sort of go like say, okay, here I am in the 1970s. I'm going to make my 1980s different because I didn't agree with that. And then people are doing that. It's not really 1980s anymore, but people are going back to a time when we had something figured out so that we can go forward from there because we're like, let's erase that. We're not going to erase it, but we're going to learn from our history and go back and redo some stuff, which is the point of history. And that's I think that's something that's never been done before.
Yeah, it's never been done before.
Why do we need to do something new?
And so much culture, so many types of music, so many different types of movies and books in the past 100 years we're going back and it's like a gold mine to us now. You go on TikTok, there's old songs. There's old vintage looking styles that people are wearing.
I always consider myself ahead of the time because me and two friends I had in school, we loved the old music. And I don't know, people probably make fun of us. I don't remember people being outright rude to us about it. But we'd wear bell bottoms. I had a friend who wore bell bottoms in like 6th, 7th grade. We pretended to be the Beatles and we really went back and we loved this old music. And now we're here and we're like, everybody else is doing it too. And I'm not resentful. I'm like, why did you guys not do it then? I'm like, I'm glad people are doing it now.
Yeah.
I'm glad. But yeah, I think it's been coming ever since I was in middle school. So think about 2009, 10, 11, 12, whatever. It was already coming. What we thought was going to happen. End of the world in 2012 or something.
Yeah, it did end. It really ended.
Something ended.
Yeah, the culture, the feeling, the
zeitgeist. The good in the culture ended. Our culture didn't end, but the point where it stopped being good ended, and we have to go back to that point and try to redo what we did because we did something wrong.
Well, it's like we're in a new era, a new age.
Yeah, we are.
And now we're taking the pieces of what was the past.
Because we have such a knowledge of the past and such access to knowledge now.
Yeah, we're making... I mean, when I do look back at the past 20 years, you know what I have seen is a revolution of individuality. Really, if I stop being cynical and all doom and gloom, you know, these 3D printers, laboratory equipment, Amazon, the YouTube, all of these things have enabled an individual to have infinite power If
yeah.
if you have the willpower, if you have the will.
Yeah, this stuff is cool what we're doing. And back when we were kids, we're probably like, man, that is so cool.
There are people that do what we're doing. They've been doing it longer, and maybe people like them better for different reasons, and they're making millions of dollars a year off of just talking, because people want to tune into that channel, to that way of thinking, that vibe of people, and I think that is a great thing that we've accomplished. That I don't know if it has been achieved, because we're creatures of attention. And now we have all kinds of things to pay attention to. We're creatures of worship. That's another way to look at it. Worship is attention. When you're doing a prayer, you're paying attention to the most divine thing you can imagine. People that are addicted to things, that is still a form of worship and attention. Mm-hmm. They're doing a ritual. They have their things set up the way they have their things set up. And they do it when they feel like they need guidance or they need something, and people do that with prayer as well. We're creatures of attention and worship. We have an attention economy now in the form of YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, you name it. Like buttons, dislike buttons are kind of a hot topic now. What's your take on the dislike button being taken off of?
I love the dislike button, and I love being able to get on Facebook and laugh at someone's comment.
Yeah.
You used to not be able to dislike someone's comment on Facebook. I love being able to what an idiot.
Give people feedback of what they're doing is good or bad.
Because it's really the truth of how people feel about what they're reading.
Right.
It's important for people to get on there and act like idiots or something. It's important to laugh at them. And when 10 people will laugh at your comment, you're like, man.
Maybe it can help you.
What am I an idiot, or are they? Am I posting this in the wrong place around the wrong people, or?
So now instead, people will just either get likes or not, and so by people just walking away, they're going to have to determine their metrics that way. Do you? What do you think about that? Is that you think that's what they're trying to do? They're trying to make it. Just because everybody's so sensitive about things.
Yeah, the people feel entitled to respect even though they don't deserve, or they feel entitled to love and likes out in the world even though they don't necessarily merit the actions to deserve that.
Yeah.
Some of the things people say are retarded to me. Now, 10,000 other people in the world might think what you're saying is the best thing ever. They should be able to let you know that, but I should be able to let you know that's stupid. Without having to write it out to you, just a reaction. Like, this is, and I think that's the problem. People aren't able to visualize how people out in the real world are going to react to them because their parents and their siblings never clash and they never understood each other and they don't know the real reactions people have.
Ooh, that's good.
And that's why people don't want that reaction, because it hurts them. They don't understand it. They're probably really incapable of understanding why you're doing that to them, because no one's ever done that to them.
Ooh, that's
They don't
good.
understand it. But like me, per se, I'm like, yeah, my brother would think I'm retarded, and he'd do this face to me. He'd laugh at my ass right here. But I'm not sensitive to that because it's happened, and I understand it. And I'm like, I'm used to that.
Right.
But I'm going to fight back with this person. I'll tell my brother off for saying that. But people don't have that. And so taking that away helps them because they weren't prepared for that in the real world. But when they get off the internet and they go out and they communicate with people, they're really going to have a harsh reaction. And that's when they start arguing emotionally because they were never taught to argue with facts. So you go out and say you go to a bar and you're talking to someone and you say something probably just not socially acceptable or stupid. Just stupid. And someone's like, yeah, dude, what the hell did you just say? That was dumb. And they'll be like, or something will shatter inside of them and they'll be like, you idiot, you little idiot, or something. And they'll just react emotionally because that's all they know.
Right.
They were never taught to have an intelligent conversation or an argument or a debate.
Yeah, they've never practiced that, yeah.
Well, they're probably taught you're right all the time. That's what you teach someone when you don't tell your kids, you don't argue with your kids and tell them sometimes you're wrong, sometimes you're right. You got to understand that. When you don't do that, they think they're right all the time.
What about all these people that are shut-ins, the NEETs, the hikikimoris, the shut-ins, the people that don't want to do anything at all, and they're just checking out of society.
Good
They
for them.
don't want to have a voice. They don't want to speak at all. What do you think it would take to get them to use their voice?
I don't know that it would be good for them or us. Maybe.
Okay.
If they want to do that, I say go. Good for you, man. I don't know why you're doing it. I don't relate to that, but if that's what you feel like you need to do, then you should do that. They express themselves. They have books. They do different stuff.
Do you think I think it has a lot to do with the utopian mouse experiment and how the male mice dug underground and they started taking care of each other and hiding and avoiding the women. And literally there are men living in their parents' basements. They're living underground. I think there's a lot of parallels with that. Women
Yes.
being more vicious.
Well, I
And
would
they're-
say it has more to do. I wouldn't say it has anything to do with the female relationship as a mature relationship outside that would produce children. I'd say it has more to do with his parents inside the house.
Well, yeah,
Something's
that's
wrong
what I
inside the
mean.
house.
The mother is vicious, and he witnessed the vicious mother devour the father, and the father helplessly put up with it because he doesn't want to go
that's
through a
one
divorce.
sense, but there's also those hyper masculine men with the women who never stand up, and perhaps a male feels responsible for staying and protecting his mom.
I think a lot of families aren't much like that. I think a lot of families in America now have an overbearing mother, and because I've seen that a lot with friends and people. The mother is the dictator that dictates everything. The father very rarely is either in the picture or is subservient to the tyrant mother, the tyrannical mother.
I agree with that. The only other example I've seen is like mother abandonment in someone that stays home with the father. I've seen that. Perhaps it's rare, but I have seen that. I think both are detrimental, but usually you don't have the mother that abandons is a thing.
Right, that's what I mean. There's something going on. The female spirit is out of whack. We've given the women rights, voting, reproductive control, and things have not gotten any better. Is what I'm saying.
Well, I think it was the
There's no
guys.
peace.
Women really weren't given more rights. We were given a worse deal. We were told you got to work, but you still also do have to have a family, and you have to go through the financial burden and the physical burden of having a child and juggling all this. It's a lot to juggle for a woman. It's a very weird position we've put women in.
Capitalism, capitalist society.
Because women are bound to children when they have them.
Because the priority is making money, not making a good kid, not making a kid even.
Yeah. So that's a problem. I think women were given a bad deal that put a lot more on us. Now, if someone wants to go have a career and stuff, that's cool. If they want to do this stuff, that's cool. But do I think most women want to do that? No, I do not.
Do you think that's why they want to open the borders and do this globalism? Because these third world countries have overpopulation, so to speak, and we are losing our population?
I don't really think we're thinking about that. Most people, individual basis. As a whole, they'll say, oh, we think it's overpopulation, but I think if they're just saying that, I don't know if that's really the motivation. I don't know. I'm not like that, so I don't know how they're thinking.
Well, I just mean we have a lot of abortions comparatively, and a lot of people are always wanting to come across the border and come here and work for
people
very
in
cheap
other
and-
countries don't have the opportunity to probably do that as easily as we do.
And then you have the kids that we even do have here. They're not skilled laborers.
Well, I can tell you why women have a lot of abortions. Of having a child puts a woman in a very vulnerable situation where she needs the man to support her and the children because she's having the man's child, which is something a man should be thankful for, but the woman should also be thankful for a man for taking care of her. But I think that's how it has to be, because if a woman doesn't feel secure raising a child when she's in that vulnerable position, I think bad things will happen.
Yeah, like people cheat on each other and resentments. They want to go find that energy to balance them out. That masculine energy or that feminine energy on both sides of the marriage.
And that's why women are choosing not to have kids, because there's really nothing as beneficial to women anymore. We don't get anything out of it like we used to. You used to be able to get marriage, a house, children, being taken care of because you're doing this. for a man. But the man's getting this, and you're getting this out of it. Because the women want to have children.
Now you can be an Instagram model, and you can get.
You don't have to take that burden.
Yeah, you don't have. You get all the money.
There's not a lot of reward in having kids anymore. In the male-female relationship, it's hard to work off one income, and a lot of men don't want to take care of a woman like that. It's a very dangerous situation because people change so much.
Do you think there's a future in breakaway civilizations that can coexist with each other? Like, the Amish is a great example. The Amish are a breakaway civilization that live parallel to our techno babble bullshit we live in. Do you think it's time for people to break away and live in the 20th century and then let all these Instagram models and AI VR people kind of go off?
Well, they'll eventually die out because they don't reproduce. I think that's naturally what will happen.
Just like the cultures.
But until a woman can stay home, raise kids, because most women do want to have kids, but also be able to be taken care of, her sacrifice is having children. It's a very physical toll on someone.
What about producing? Let me get a little creative and imaginative. Let's go to the fantasy world for a little bit here. What if we had a device like the Farmomatic 3000 that farmed and did all this stuff for you? Like, it was like a Little House on the Prairie machine, and it made the food. It hydroponically took care of everything, basically a bigger Star Trek replicator. Do you think then that would ease the burden of people? Like, we could come up with these breakaway technologies, let's say, to assist people to be supported outside of the current system of the power grid. Solve that with solar panels, right, or wind turbine or something. Food, all the truckers having to truck this, and the gasoline and all the OPEC money. We could circumvent that with the Farmomatic or a hydroponic garden of some kind. What do you think about that? Do you think that we could coexist better that way?
Possibly, but I think there's some
how much cohesion
things that have to happen first before we can ever even think about that.
Like what?
On a realistic level. People have to figure out their dynamics with each other.
Yeah, culturally. We got to figure our culture out. What's our aim?
Healthfully. We have to react with each other in a healthy way. And then maybe we can do that. But it's a good idea or a good thought that could happen and maybe work. But I think there's just some steps we have to do before we can ever even do that and be successful at it.
Well, we can't decide between if we want to be an individual or want to be a family. I was having this discussion with another person on a podcast, and can't remember the name of it, but I'll link it. And they said that individuality is the most important thing worthy of our worship, worthy of striving for, and our attention. And but then that's chaos, that freedom. That's why I was saying earlier that freedom becomes chaos that is worshipped, the chaotic individual of everybody going their own direction. Hopefully there's a little order that comes out of it or something, but I don't see how it could.
Yeah, I know what you mean.